Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ontario Cryptids. I'm so happy to see you back for another week of strange and fascinating encounters. This upcoming Tuesday is Canada Day, so I want to wish all my fellow Canadians a very happy Canada Day. And just a few days later, we've got Independence Day on Friday. So to all my American viewers, happy 4th of July. I hope all of you enjoy the holidays, whether you're relaxing, celebrating, or heading out for an outdoor adventure. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another upload. And if you have an encounter of your own, I'd love to hear about it. Send your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Now sit back and relax, and let's jump into this week's encounter stories. I don't know if this is the right sub, but about a month ago I was camping in Mississippi with a friend we'll call Jack. We've both only been a handful of times, so I can say we are not the best campers. It was about 11:30 p.m. and we were in our tents about to go to sleep when I heard a rustling sound. We obviously didn't think much of it because we were in the woods with animals. Not too long goes by and we hear some more rustling sounds and the sound of a blood-curdling scream. Jack was positive that it was a bobcat. Again, we're not that worried, but I will admit I was a little afraid. We both fell asleep, but we were woken up by the sound of scratching and another blood-curdling scream, this time closer. The scratching went on for at least 10 minutes and getting closer. We were both much more scared than we were before. Jack wanted to see what it was, and sometimes he acts on impulse. Before I could stop him, he quickly unzipped a tent just enough to where we could see out. He covered his mouth and moved away for me to see. It was very dark, but I saw a creature at least 8 feet tall with pale, very wrinkly skin, a balloon-shaped head and eyes that were so black they looked like holes. It had claws that it ran down the tree, causing the scratching sound. Its mouth was very thin and long. It never came closer than about 10 feet from us. It just walked and scratched until it made one last scream and turned to the trees. We left first thing in the morning. It was one of the most scariest things I have ever experienced. I will never go camping again. Has anyone ever had an experience like this? What was that creature we encountered in the woods? This happened last fall in a remote area of southern Oregon, maybe a few miles outside of Ashland. I'd gone hiking alone, something I don't usually do, but the trail was quiet and I needed the headspace. I took a turn off the main path and ended up near an old creek bed, dry and overgrown. No cell signal, no people, just the sound of leaves under my boots. That's when I noticed someone standing between the trees, about 40, maybe 50 feet away. Same height, same build, same hoodie and jeans as I had on. At first, I thought it was just a weird coincidence, some other solo hiker with a similar outfit, but then I moved. I raised my left hand and a second later so did he. I turned my head left, he turned right, like a mirror. It wasn't just a mirroring, it was a delay, always one beat behind, like he was watching me and trying to keep up. The forest suddenly felt wrong. The birds stopped, my ears fell full, like the pressure before a storm. I called out, "You! Okay out there?" He didn't answer, just tilted his head, exactly like I do when I'm trying to focus on something. I took one cautious step forward. He did the same. Then he blinked, and I realized he didn't have eyes, no mouth, no features, just two darker spots on smooth skin where eyes should have been. He stepped behind a tree and didn't come back out. I waited, then finally walked over, heart pounding, and found nothing. No tracks, no movement, no wind. It was like the woods just swallowed him. I turned around and walked out of there fast. I haven't been back since. Whatever it was, it knew what I looked like. It knew how I moved. And it wanted me to see it. For some context, in the late summer, early fall of 2022, my partner and I went on a bike trip. Bicycles, not motorcycles. We aren't that cool. We planned 2 nights in the Elwha Forest at the Olympic Hot Springs. Due to the recent washout of the roads which leads to these hot springs, the area seemed to be mostly used for hikers and occasional cyclists, although I will say it was not exactly easy to bike to, with a lot of hiking bikes on single-track loose rock trails, which, when your bikes are weighing about 50 pounds of camping gear, isn't that easy. Anyway, once you traverse the washout road area to get back on the main road up to the hot springs, it's about another 20-kilometer trip up a little mountain. Then some more technical hike and bike over a washed-out bridge, then your destination, a backcountry campsite. From the start of the park, it was about a 4-hour, 20-kilometer trip uphill by bike. The campsite had a pit toilet, no running water, river nearby, and some convenient beer stashes to string your food up away from wildlife. The first night we were there, few hikers came in and out of the campground, but by the second day we were completely alone. It was extremely beautiful at the hot springs, but the eeriness of isolation was definitely hitting us the second night as we were completely by ourselves. Especially since we had to walk about 1 kilometer up and down some switchbacks to gather 1 to 2 liters of water to boil at a time on our camp stove. Not so fun at dusk, and I didn't attempt it in the actual dark 'cause I'm a wuss. We wanted to stay longer but didn't have enough food or fuel to boil water or make camping work, fire ban in place. That second night, a minimalist hiker came through and sat down with us around our camp stove to cook a meal as he passed by. He was friendly but a little odd, and I couldn't decide if it was more or less terrifying to know that some random person was comfortable enough just to walk up to us late at night. Anyways, that's the gist. Now, let me describe the unnerving part of the next morning. The event. I don't sleep well and I woke up early, like 5 a.m. before sunrise, the morning we were supposed to leave. In the tent, I kept thinking I can hear animals, but not well enough to define what kind of animals. Just random background noises. I don't know, it's the woods. We had a long bike ride ahead of us that day, so we began packing up camp before the sun came up with the headlamps and flashlights. Being afraid of the dark and a big baby, instead of me making a slightly longer walk to the pit toilet, I walked out about 10 feet from camp into the bush to pee. At the time, I started hearing what I thought were the murmurs of people camping, voices that I couldn't decipher very well. Looking through the trees, it looked like there was a reflection of a shiny sleeping bag material about 40 feet from where we were, down this sort of ravine area, and I thought, weird place to camp without a tent. But this explained the murmuring voices, so I carried on packing, with dawn just barely breaking. While we were packing, some cracking branches and general rustling noises started next to a large tree right next to where we were. By next to, I mean no more than 5 to 10 feet away from us. This was a designated backcountry campground, so while we were surrounded by trees, it wasn't thick forest in the area. There were spaced out trees with brush under them, and you could see through them well enough. There was enough of a clearing to visualize other parts of the campground, and you could see the entirety of the trees well enough that you'd assume it would be obvious if anything bigger than a few squirrels or birds were rustling in them. Anyway, the noises in the tree got progressively louder, and yet the tree was completely still. It was the sound of large branches cracking, the sound of heavy things falling, etc. To be honest, it sounded like rocks were being thrown, branches tossed at the ground. But there were never any actual rocks or branches thrown at us or anywhere. No movement. If you can imagine the sound of a large animal rustling around right next to you in a tree, that would be my best description, but visually, nothing was happening. By this point, the sun was mostly up and it was darker in the forest, but there was enough light to no longer use a flashlight. My partner and I made mention of it to each other, kind of like, is there a giant bird in there? A bear? I don't see any animals, etc. We continued packing, and I had my pocket knife, as if I'd stab a bear or a cougar. And he had a bear spray by his side. We started moving faster with the mutual understanding of like, what the F is happening? And as I mentioned, I am a wuss, so I felt somewhat internally panicked, but was trying my best not to project my panic. We had resorted to intermittently clapping our hands, hollering in case there was some kind of magical wild animal in the brush that I just couldn't see. Finally packed, we moved our loaded bikes to the sort of main trail area of the campground, a little bit further away from the loud tree, but still within 20 to 25 feet. This is where the outhouses were. It was at this point that I realized what I earlier thought in the darkness dawn were people sleeping with reflective sleeping bags in the open was actually the reflective aluminum of some water drain sort of ravine area by the main trailhead. There were no people, and we were still completely alone. I had no idea what those voices were earlier. My partner went to use the outhouse right in front of us off the trail so we could get the hell out of there while we fastened our final items to our bikes. And at this point, the commotion of the trees were getting increasingly louder. And while it probably doesn't sound scary, it was quite scary while I was standing there alone. I couldn't see the tree from the different vantage point now, and there was still nothing there, no movement in the tree, just loud branches crackling right in front of me, no wind. The sound of the tree being trashed by something larger, and yet no movement. I felt crazy. I started wondering if I was going to be attacked when he was in the outhouse, so I just continued clapping and making loud noises to make my presence known. Finally, my partner walks out of the outhouse and all the noises stops. Like completely stops. Dead quiet. We put our bear spray away and got the hell out of there. Ultimately, my feeling on this is that something wanted us to leave. I know the story reads as pretty stupid, and again, nothing ultimately occurred other than noises. Evidently, Sasquatch was on my mind after this happened. We tried to learn a little bit more history on the hot springs, discovered a small book on its commercial history, and did Google other Sasquatch-like encounters in the area. However, I'm not left with much interpretation of this event other than the feeling like the Elwha Forest and the Olympic Peninsula is definitely special, and it changed my perception of the woods and its possible inhabitants. I read that these hot springs are sacred to the Clallam tribes, but as a white settler, I can't speak much on what that means for this story. Had I been alone, I probably would have questioned if I was having auditory hallucinations. When I tell people this story, they are usually like, "So what? You heard some noises in a tree." But it's hard to convey how loud and violently the tree sounded, given that it looked totally normal. Maybe you'll feel the same way. I did find some weird missing 411 cases in the greater area of the Olympic Peninsula, but I don't put much into the similarity of those. I've never been back, but I would like to return one day with more people and camp stove fuel, as it otherwise felt like a stunning paradise in the woods before the tree event. Anyways, that's it. I hope you find it to be interesting, if nothing else. All right, that's going to wrap things up for today. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. I truly hope you enjoyed today's episode and the mysterious encounters we shared. Once again, I'd like to wish all my Canadian viewers a happy Canada Day and a happy 4th of July to my American viewers. Enjoy the celebration and stay safe out there. Now, a huge thank you goes out to our current channel members, Elizabeth, Jim, and Teresa. Thank you for your ongoing support. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. And if you have an encounter of your own, I'd love to hear about it. Send your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com and it will be featured in a future episode. Wishing you all a fantastic week ahead, and don't miss next week's episode of Ontario Cryptids.